Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me for 10 Minute Tuesday. This is a great episode. I got Mr. Du Bois Challenge, Mr. Sociology, Mr. Great One, developer, designer, programmer, everything, Mr. The Great Anthony Starks. How you doing, man?
Hi, everybody.
Hey, thank you so much for joining 10 Minute Tuesday, man. I really appreciate this one, connecting with you. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Anthony, man, what really compelled you to get into data to begin with?
For me, it was all about trying to make sense of the data and the information that I have. So, one of the things that I really am interested in is the visual and compelling ways to show that. So, one of the sort of taglines for my career is I bring, you know, data and code and art together, right? So, it's art and code together is a really interesting mix. So putting those things together is a way that, to me, is a way to show people things that they couldn't see before, right? So we can show spreadsheets and stuff like that, but when you show them visually, things become alive. So I'm all about that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a key component that drew me in as well. Is the ability to use both parts of your brain. There's the logical
Oh yeah,
side of it, and then you got the
of course,
artsy, creative, crafty side of it.
of
Um,
course.
so, so that's awesome. So, Anthony, I mean, you've had such a long career. You've done a lot of great stuff, but I'm sure there have been some roles and things that you've had that you did not enjoy. So, what would you consider your least favorite job that you've had?
So my least favorite job was probably the last one that I had. It was at and it was not due to the work per se, but it was due to the management. A lot of people say that people leave their jobs because not for the work, but because of the management and how that makes you feel, or how that kind of environment. So, just having things that were not well defined in that work, and having a manager who would undermine you and would not support you was the thing that made it kind of least favorite for me.
Yeah. I've definitely had positions in my career where there's like the ambiguity, which we all have some ambiguity,
Yeah,
but it was just like continuous ambiguity, or you're just
correct.
kind of left hanging, or even when you busted and you're like really going after it, they get the credit for it. And you're like, I don't have to deal with this.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. So, understanding the journey, you've done a number of great things, but there have been some times where you had quotation marks around failure.
Sure.
Because I really don't think you ever fail. You learn from experience. But what would you consider your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that
So
experience?
again, several years ago, I was working at a large pharmaceutical at the time, and we had a very large, ambitious effort to do, some security infrastructure. We at that time, it seems foolish now, but we were building our own public key infrastructure. So one of the, and it went okay, but I would say it was kind of a failure because it didn't do everything that we wanted it to do. And it spent a lot of time. So the big lesson to that for me is knowing when to cut your losses, knowing when to say, maybe this is too big for us. Maybe we should scope it down. Maybe we should take it down. Um, and I would tell people in their careers as well, um, when you kind of see the handwriting on the wall in your job or in the work that you're doing, um, don't be afraid to say, this is not for me at this time, and I should be looking for other things. Again, advice, layoffs and things like that are kind of a fact of life now. And I've been through that a couple of times. And the thing that I would tell young people is, don't wait until it happens. Um, have things together, have things that you can do to try to escape before it comes down. Because there are signs that people are trying to manage you out, or those kinds of things. Um, don't be afraid to get out early, because the company ultimately sees you as a resource. Um, You're not a person, human resource. And you ultimately are responsible for your own things. So don't be afraid to take that and move on.
Wow, that's really incredible and it really sound advice and a great perspective. I think a little follow up for that question is: did you get better as you grew in your career at kind of seeing the writing on the wall, or when it was time to kind of get out
I
of there?
did, I did. So, at a couple of jobs before, kind of saw it and I thought I could stick it out. They said no. Uh, Goodbye. But this is fine. I mean, this is life. And then in other jobs, I saw an opportunity to get out early, and I took it. So that comes from experience and that kind of thing. And I also realize, depending upon where you are in your career, you may or may not have that flexibility. So I appreciate that as well. Um, so, but again, the overall advice is to don't be so wedded to things that you can't have an escape hatch.
Hmm. So,
Yep.
and I'm harping on this because it's kind of relevant to me real time right now. But did you with your escape patch that you had? Did you always have like a plan B or plan C, or always continuously think about the next move
Let me tell you
that you
what,
want to do?
not necessarily, but the plan that you should have is getting skills. Okay. Having skills and developing skills are the tools that you can use to move if you need to move. Another piece of advice I would give people is find something in your work that's yours, that you are the best in the world or the best in your organization at doing. All of us kind of have, those kinds of talents, those kinds of unique things that are ours. Find that thing and make it yours and take that continually going on through your career. That's how you become marketable. That's how you can sort of write your own ticket. Um, and, never underestimate the value of networking and knowing people. Many times you get jobs because not from a LinkedIn post or something like that, but it's who you know.
Yep.
Um, and 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 so use things like LinkedIn and that kind of thing to get to know people and to expand your network, because that's how you could get ahead. So, find that skill, find that thing, develop it even after work. So that's mine. There are certain things that, I'm the best in the world at, right? It may be small, uh, but there are things that you can be the go-to person for. And you can find that in the context of your job as well.
I love that. That's great, and that's really sound advice, right? To be the best or understand you're the greatest at this particular thing, and you market that thing, and that's who you become.
Right.
Another question, I guess, follow up on that was:
Mhm.
was that a mentality that you've always had, or did you kind of grow into that as you evolved?
I grew into it, but I did have that early. I know we're going to talk about influences, but one thing that stuck with me in my first job out of college, I was doing the interview, and one person sort of I was interviewing with this person, and they sort of took me aside afterwards and says, "You know what? If you're given a challenge, say I want to do it. Don't shrink from the challenge, even though you think can't really do that. That's not my skill. Take on that challenge." And I've always remembered that. And, this was decades ago. But as I think back to that, that's always been a mentality. Don't shrink from the challenge would be the question, would be the advice that I would give people.
Love that. Love that. Don't shrink from the challenge. So I'm gonna go ahead and write that down and put it on a sticky board and have it in front of me.
Right.
All right. So you mentioned it earlier, but tell me about the most influential people in your life and really how have they impacted you?
So again, I was thinking about that, and I have to say, my father, was probably very influential in my career choices because I saw that again. He graduated from college. All his siblings graduated from college, and I used to hear him think about, well, yes, it was hard, but I got through it. So that always gave me a model to say, okay, I can do that. And thinking that, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. It becomes a sort of generational thing. And again, the other influences, again, that person that I was interviewing for my first job. But I also got several kind of professional kind of influences that I want to share with you. Um, as I was thinking through your questions, I went through my bookshelf and I said, okay, let me grab these books. Books are interesting. I'm kind of a bibliophile as well. And they kind of are a sort of time machine, if you will, through my career. So I'm going to hold up some books and tell you about them, and talk about how they influenced me. So here's one. This is the Unix programming environment by Brian Kerrigan and Rob Pike. This one really taught me about the whole notion of building tools and building tools that will work together, as you're going forward. Hang on, let me get one more. This book is the tech book by Donald Knuth. Um, you know, Giant of computer science, as people know. But that one taught me about aesthetics and the value of craftsmanship, and building your own tools. Obviously, everybody knows the notion that Knuth built tech and the whole typesetting system, Metafont, because he was unhappy with the state of typesetting for his books. So guess what? He spent years developing his own system so that he could make beautiful documents, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's Donald Knuth and the tech book. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so the next one here is processing by Casey Reese and Ben Fry. And in many ways, this sort of kicked off my data visualization kind of journey. This one really melds the whole notion of art and code together. Processing is a system, and it's still around, for that they built for non-technical people, artists, if you will, designers, to understand programming and to build programming pictures, right? So I'm happy that this book was actually signed by Ben Fry, and he says, "Anthony, keep on processing."
Wow. I
Okay.
love that.
So programming pictures. This is the book that solidified that for me. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so the visual display of quantitative information by Edward Tufte. Um, Again, Edward Tufte is a well-known person in data viz circles. I went to one of his lectures, where you get the books, he signs them for you, but he walks through again this whole notion of ink data ratio and minimalism, and having just the right amount of information to show. Those again ideas were again characterized by Tufte. Um, so here's another one. Um, the Guide to Information Graphics by the Wall Street Journal. This one's really good because it's a do and don't book,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
The do's and don'ts of presenting data, facts, and figures, right? Because you can walk through it and it says, this is how you're supposed to do it,
Yeah.
and this is how you're not supposed to do it, right? So it's a very short book, but it's a gem in terms of kind of those kinds of things. Okay, let's keep going. So we're going into more modern folks. Here's a book called Joyful Infographics by Nigel Holmes. If you're a certain age and you remember Time magazine, Nigel Holmes was known for sort of his fanciful information graphics before they were called that. In fact, it's interesting to compare, Tufte and Holmes because they're kind of two sides of the same coin, right? So Tufte would call the kinds of stuff that Holmes did it chart junk,
Yeah.
right? Okay, but I really appreciate Holmes's very fanciful and very, again, joyful way of presenting information.
Hmm.
Okay, that's another one. Okay, so going to again to some contemporaries. How Charts Lie, Alberto Cairo, right? Who needs no introduction. So Alberto Cairo's been doing a lot of work recently to sort of bring the literacy around how do you actually read charts? How do you build that into curricula? Um, how we can be more literate in that as well. Okay, one more. Um, Info We Trust by R.J. Andrews, right? R.J. Andrews, again, this is really, it's kind of, you can think of it as a successor to Tufte, in that he goes into lots of classical detail, historical detail about the design, again, of information. And then finally, this is the book that we're all familiar with, right? W. Du Bois, Data Portraits, Visualizing Black America by Whitney Battle Baptiste and Britt Russard, right? This is the book that sort of started my journey on probably what I'm known for now, and that's recreating the visuals for W.E.B. Du Bois's 1900 exposition. So that's kind of um, a walk through again from the 80s. Okay, let's see, the latest, yeah, the Unix programming environment was done in 1985, all the way up into the present day.
Wow.
So
That
yeah,
is incredible. One, I'm going to write down all of these books and make sure that I have some of these in my library. And two, you just gave me a lot to aspire to, honestly, in that moment of in the career and the journey. Like, how can I look back at the stuff I'm learning, not just in my brain, but here's a physical timeline of when I use these things and when it pick back. Wow, that was really inspirational. I really appreciate that.
thanks a lot.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm gonna get this also on recording as well. Thank you so much for being accommodating and really nice. Me and
No
Alan just had
problem.
this random idea one day of, how can we do the Du Bois challenge? Here's how can we recreate this stuff, and I don't know, we'll figure it out. And lo and behold, you had all the data sets, everything in GitHub, and been so nice and accommodating. So always really, really appreciate it. Appreciate your guidance, your smartness, your brilliance. Like, you always give me something to look forward to and to live up to. So I really appreciate you, man.
Thank you. No problem.
Cool. Awesome, Anthony. Final question. Where can listeners find you at online?
Okay, you can find me. My handle on everything is AJ Starks, AJSTARKS. So I'm on Twitter/X as AJ Starks. Speaker Deck, speakerdeck.com/AJ Starks. You can see all my work. So when I produce work, I'll post it there. And all my code and data is on github.com/AJ Starks. So those are all the places where you can see me. And
Awesome.
you can email me at ajstarks@ajstarks.org.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll make sure I have all the contact information in the link and description of this video as well. Appreciate you, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was great.
Okay,
And everybody, if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll talk to y'all next week for 10 Minute Tuesday. Y'all have a great day.
thanks a lot.